Are you ready to embrace the kid in you? Lighten up, come back to the present, and initiate a multidimensional dialogue? Keep watching until the end to receive all my tips about this new moon at 9 degrees of Gemini. So the sun and the moon joining at 9 degrees of Gemini has to do with the inner kid, that which is fascinated by the world and for who everything is new. And this reminds me of a quote from Khalil Gibran, which says, "Keep me away from the wisdom which does not cry, the philosophy which does not laugh, and the greatness which does not bow before children." And these days I've been doing baby readings, and it's very interesting because they didn't develop their ego yet. So I usually read 3 charts, but in the case of children I don't get into the unconscious because it's better not to touch it until later on. And I only read the 5D chart and the 3D chart. And it's very interesting because they didn't develop the 3D personality yet, which is fully developed at 7 years old. And the effect of a reading can be exponential because they come in touch with all their talents and gifts already. And if you know how they will tend to shut that down, their parents can be there for them more consciously of the purpose of their soul journey. And I was trying to do the reading of this 2-year-old girl, but there was something on the way. And then when I connected with her soul, she actually helped me first with finding out where I disconnected from my inner kid to be able to deliver the reading from that innocence. Because there is 2 types of innocence. One would be the one we have when we are kids and we don't know much yet. And usually we believe that we lose this kind of innocence when we grow up, but that's not true. As Clarissa Pinkola Estes says, ignorance is not knowing anything and being attracted to the good. Innocence is knowing everything and still being attracted to the good. So we can have had all kinds of experience and feel like at some point we lost touch with that innocence, but it is available to us anytime. It's just not true that it disappears. But it is up to us to keep in touch with it. So the question here would be, when did you disconnect from the kid in you, who already knew what she or he wanted? When we are kids, we know what we want to do, even if it sounds a little crazy. Like, I wanted to be a clown, a painter, and a magician. But there already is something there that is connected to our true essence. And when we build our 3D personality, we create this mask to survive in the world. And we feel like we have to forget all these dreams we had when we were kids. And it's just not true, because it is precisely when we get in touch with that true essence after actually living through all these programs that we are able to choose to let go of what is not aligned with that innocence. And this brings us air to breathe because Gemini is an air sign after the intensity of the full moon Scorpio, and they are actually very different archetypes, but still it makes sense that we did all this clearing of inner waters with Scorpio, and now we get in touch with that innocence. So where can you lighten up, make it more fun, and keep a sense of humor? And the ruler of this new moon is Mercury, which is actually the messenger of the divine self. And it is when we have been able to come back to the 0 point that Scorpio represents, that we can really align with the present and initiate a multidimensional dialogue. Gemini is also represented by the twins, which represent multiplicity and versatility, and that is related to this capacity when we don't carry that much weight anymore to be able to feel lighter and connect with these different divine aspects of us that our inner kid is so in touch with. I once astral projected from a lucid dream where I went to a place where there was a chocolate cake talking to me, and he told me I was in a place where that was like a buffet where I could choose any food that exists. And then I was a little overwhelmed because I could choose anything, and then someone in the counter appeared and they had like a drawer where they had all my tastes filed in there, and so they started like creating something with all that I liked the most. And this reminds me a little bit of this energy because Gemini is a very creative sign, and so we are kind of in this moment where we are more in contact with the 0 point after the emptying with the full moon in Scorpio. And from this contact with the inner kid and with the present moment, where it's easier to have this dialogue with life. It's like we are presented with a buffet of possibilities, and it can feel a little bit overwhelming, but it's about being creative and being in touch with this kid that already knows what wants to try next. And manifestation also has to do a lot with being in touch with this innocence, with this purity of thought, because when our thoughts and emotions are too heavy, it's very difficult to manifest, or you actually manifest very heavy situations. So it's a lot about lightening up and breathing this air that Gemini is bringing, and making it more fun, like not being so focused on results, but more on enjoying the present. And it's precisely when we're doing that, when we're not thinking about the past or the future, that the biggest opportunities present themselves. This is when we are truly in touch with the creator consciousness. And it doesn't mean that it will happen overnight, but we all have been in touch with that innocence at some point. And so we can find ways to expand more this energy, which now are available to us. And so that's also why it's so important to clear distortions. And by distortion, I understand anything that feels heavy. And maybe at some point there is a belief you have that it's serving you, and eventually it stops serving you, and it feels like it's holding you back. So you don't need a big explanation or reasoning there, but to be in touch with what feels like to you. Because only when we are fully present, we are so creative. Without that, we're more into the automatic pilot and automatic thoughts that we have by default, that are more ruled by the unconscious and what we're used to until now. So if you really want to create something new, connect with the kid, with the innocence that is not calculating, that just wants to have fun. And that also connects us with what I usually tell you in the beginning of the videos about not looking at the planets as some external force to blame. It's also asking you, like, how do you look at the sky? Do you expect it to tell you what is going to happen to you? Or do you initiate a dialogue with it, a co-creation with it? And Mercury is still retrograding at the last decan of Taurus, squaring Saturn, but it's trying Pluto and sextile Neptune. So it can be trying to find security in the details, trying to control the situation, to feel safe, to feel secure. But the purpose of this is that we find more this security inside by realizing the creative power that we have when we are in the present, and not trying to control or calculating with our thoughts or trying to manipulate reality, because then it's when it's more difficult to manifest what we want. And we also have Mars conjunct Jupiter in Aries, in its own sign, and that is going to give us a lot of courage to take action without overthinking. So I would use this Mercury retrograding to connect more with the kid in you, instead of going outside and trying to review the past and how you can manage reality to fit what you think that you want, more on an ego level. So go more into this inner kid that is like a messenger of the divine in you, connecting you with this innocence that is able to open all doors, because others notice, and we are becoming more and more telepathic. So we're starting to feel more and more when something is authentic and when it's not. Mercury is also related to communication, and with communication we can either communicate with an agenda, or we can communicate more authentically without hidden motives or something like that. So the more honest we can be with ourselves and then with others and with the world, the easier it is that doors open for us. So take life more like a game, but not a strategic game, but one where you are enjoying each moment without worrying about what you can get out of it. And the paradox is that you get better results when you do it that way. If you haven't watched it yet, I recommend you to check out the second part of the Stages of Awakening video, where you can understand better the connection between 5D, 4D, 3D that I mentioned. And keep tuned for new spiritual book reviews, this time about starseeds and our multidimensional connections. Remember, you are the creator, so choose your interpretation wisely. Looking forward to see you in the next video.